Hi guys, today I want to talk about a well-known, awe-inspiring site, the Leshan Giant Buddha, which was carved into the side of a mountain. This colossal statue is over 1,200 years old and is considered the largest stone Buddha in the world. It's a 71 meter or 233 feet tall sandstone statue depicting Maitreya. During my research, I found irregularities pointing to the possibility that this megalithic Buddha statue was repurposed from a much older site, possibly from prehistory time. The Leshan Giant Buddha is located in Sichuan, southeast China. This calmly seated iconic figure is located on the shady side of Mount Lingyuan, right by the convergence of three rivers. The solemn Buddha faces west, resting his immense hands upon giant knees, with heavy-lidded eyes gazing across the river. The Buddha is deeply set into a somewhat concealed 30-meter wide niche. The Leshan Giant Buddha is said to have been built to calm the turbulent waters, especially the Dadu River, which shattered boats and plagued their occupants in the years past. The enormous statue is 20 stories high. It's stated that 100 monks could sit on one foot. Originally, the Buddha was completely covered with a grand multi-storied wooden temple pavilion, which was a common practice in the past. The pavilion was destroyed and rebuilt many times throughout the centuries. This explains the visible beam holes and the small niches on the side walls. The last temple was destroyed during the Qing dynasty, and since then the giant Buddha has remained exposed to the elements. The scale of the work is astonishing. The amount of stone that had to be removed from the mountain to depict the Buddha must have been massive. The project was initiated by a monk in 713. The work started at the mountaintop and worked its way down after carving the head. The removed stone was said to be discarded in the river. The project continued on and off after the monk's passing, and was eventually completed on the 90-year mark. The earliest Buddha photos were taken over 100 years ago and show the deteriorating state of the statue. In 1914, the Frenchman Henri Dulin visited this region and described the Buddha being seated inside a niche. Even though massive, the statue had suffered severe weathering and overgrowing vegetation. Also, it was not artistically pleasing. It looked like an unfinished snowman. On the other hand, he praised the elegant alcoves and beautiful smaller Buddha statues engraved on the rock walls nearby. This Frenchman pointed out a strange fact that the Leshan Giant Buddha does not look like the traditional Chinese Buddha statues. Even today, after many rounds of restoration, the aesthetic value of Leshan Buddha is subpar when compared to the other magnificent ancient Chinese Buddha statues. There are many large stone Buddha that were created a few hundred years before and from the same era. Some of them are in Leshan. They are beautifully sculpted and show outstanding craftsmanship. Compared to these elegant, lifelike Buddha statues, the Leshan Buddha lacks facial structure, which makes a statue vivid and aesthetically appealing. This Buddha has a flat and square face with no brow bone or eye sockets. The eyebrows, pupils, and lips are painted to be recognizable. Unless vandalized and robbed, most large-scale Chinese stone Buddha statues from the Tang Dynasty remain in great shape with no vegetation. The small statues, especially the ones closer to the ground, were easier for thieves to steal and vandalize. The colossal size of Leshan Buddha should have been a beneficial feature for its preservation. It's not easy to gain access to the upper portion. Leshan Buddha's face, however, is greatly deteriorated, since he looks so different from all the other Tang Dynasty Buddha. Here are two stone Buddha which were created before the Leshan Buddha at a mountain about 66 miles away. They are also carved from the same red sandstone and about half the size of the Leshan Buddha. They're not nearly as famous and are often overlooked by most people. But their craftsmanship is visibly superior, and these statues didn't suffer much from weathering. Even without maintenance, they stay vegetation-free. Then why is the Leshan Buddha always getting so much vegetation? Currently, it needs constant cleaning or the moss returns. Why does the Leshan Buddha look so different? I don't think the ancient workers put in the immense amount of labor to create a colossal-sized Buddha just to end up with unsatisfying craftsmanship. That doesn't make sense. The original facial feature of Leshan Buddha must have been as impressive as other amazingly carved statues. Did constant weather exposure destroy the structural details of the Buddha over time? Leshan is located in a basin with mild weather, plenty of rain, no gale wind, and almost frost-free. The giant Buddha was protected under a temple for centuries. Even when it gets exposed, it still sits in a deep alcove, which offers some protection from both sun and wind. On the cliffside next to the giant Buddha, there are two carved warriors in battle robes. They're more exposed to the sun, wind, and rain, but no vegetation grows on them, and the south one's face is recognizable. Leshan Buddha is not entirely made of stone. The ears and nose were crafted from wood, then covered with clay and mortar. It was common knowledge that the ears were made of wood, as stated in a journal written in the 1100s, when the temple was still covering the Buddha. The wooden nose was a fairly recent discovery, and we don't know if it was designed that way originally. The small hair bands are plugged in and sealed with mortar. That's not original. These details beg the question, why didn't the ancient workers carve the statue entirely in stone? The head was the first thing they started, and one would think that they wouldn't start cutting corners so early in this project. I have a theory that might explain these irregularities, which I will come back to shortly. We see the peeling mortar or plaster at the toes. Going through many restorations, the Buddha accumulated multiple layers of mortar. Mortar cracks easier than stone. Dirt can gather at the cracks where vegetation can grow. Considering the fact that in early 1900s, vegetation grew on almost the entire Buddha's upper body, the top of the head, and even some facial parts, it's possible that the Buddha was covered mostly with mortar. This is a very peculiar practice that is not common for stone Buddhas in ancient China. Why is Leshan Buddha an outlier? Using mortar on stone statues would require constant maintenance, which is not required by other big true stone statues. A major point of carving statues in stone is for their durability and longevity. Then why did the workers of Leshan Buddha cover the stone with less durable mortar? Isn't that strange? While researching, I found several sites inside the Leshan Buddha tourist park, very close to the Buddha, with interesting tool marks. The sandstone here has a hardness of 6 on mold scale, which is not a soft stone. This one is near the current Buddha park entrance. The size and style are exactly the same as the ones we saw at Longyou Caves and other ancient Chinese quarries. This fountain is even closer to the Buddha, and we can see the same layered of diagonal tool marks as well. Actually, there are many places on Mount Lingyuan that have such markings, even on the zigzag staircase that is right on the north side of the Buddha niche. It's claimed to have been built at the same time as the giant Buddha. The staircase was covered with vegetation and inaccessible before the cleanup. See these large-scale tool marks? They're uniformed and parallel, very much like those made by modern hard rock mining machines. The scale of such tool marks is beyond the capacity of any hand tools. Even a handheld rock drill cannot create marks that are parallel like we see here. I think these marks are clearly advanced machine marks. It's very fortunate that some of these marks survived, partially due to them being in a tucked-in location and the slight curvature shape having created a shelter for the markings. This narrow and steep stone staircase was said to have been built along with the excavation of this statue. The Buddha was carved from its head down to its toes and took 90 years to complete in 803. Obviously, there was no advanced machinery back then that could perform this monumental work. Then how can we explain all the machine marks in this area? Did the stairs and other places with machine marks exist in prehistory time? Maybe Mount Lingyun is a site that a lost civilization had worked on with advanced machinery. Possibly that same civilization left behind massive stone blocks attached to the mountain. Ancient Chinese could have found the site and saw its potential of being repurposed to a giant Buddha statue to honor Maitreya, the future Buddha. Since it was built on top of leftover stone blocks, it would have saved on the immense labor needed, though at the same time it has certain limitations. For example, perhaps the leftover stone block didn't have sufficient material to carve out certain body areas such as the Buddha's ears. So some facial features were created with mortar and wooden frames and added to the stone blocks. Because such structure was made of less durable material, it didn't last as long as stone. Once the superficial add-on feature wears off, we're left with the underlying stone block, which explains the flat and blocky face we see today. The stone block with the added mortar creation could also help explain the severity of the weathering and the difficulty of preservation. The areas that are carved from stone, like the neck and hands, usually stay vegetation-free. The upper body, however, was covered with plants, which could mean it was supplemented with mortar before. As I said earlier, when mortar cracks and peels off, dirt and vegetation started to overtake the statue. Is my theory far-fetched? Here is an ancient quarry in Japan with similar machine marks. One piece of stone block was repurposed as a Buddha in 1948. I think this quarry is another megalithic site originally worked on by a prehistory civilization with advanced machinery. From the Roman Colosseum to the Inca temples, we see our ancestors having repurposed and reused prior ancient structures and leftover building materials. It's a cross-cultural practice that made great sense given certain limitations of our forebears' building and engineering technology. Plus, I have more supporting evidence to add to my theory, which I will save for the next video. I propose the real possibility that some well-known cultural sites might have different and even longer histories than we are currently led to believe. We may need to re-examine existing premises when revisiting these ancient sites. Clues surround us and can be reviewed with eyes wide open. The past is not yet set in stone. I want to personally thank Lipithinthia who brought to my attention the Leshan Giant Buddha. If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I have a wide range of topics that I want to share with you. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.